everybody. It's Dave Dyer, and welcome to episode 4 of my Tight 10 podcast. I'm your host, and Tight 10 is my podcast where I ask my guests 10 questions to help you learn about who they are. Nice and quick, just like me, in and out at a party. So my guest today is Tom Griswold. Tom is the host of the Bob and Tom Show, the radio show out of Indianapolis. The show started in Petoskey in the early 1980s, moved to Indianapolis in about 1983, and then in 1995 was syndicated nationally. In 2015, Tom and Bob Kevoian were inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame, but most important of all, 18 years ago, they were willing to book a mediocre feature out of Grand Rapids, and you guys couldn't have been nicer to me when I came on the show. So welcome, Tom.
You were a lot more handsome then.
I was a lot more handsome.
Yes, our standards have drastically changed.
My hair's not even gray. It's clear now. You can see right through it. So.
That's a good look.
All right, so here we go. 10 questions. A couple of them are silly. The rest of them we're going to talk about careers and our relationship. And I almost said friendship. I didn't want to jump the boat there. All right, first one. I ask everybody this question because it's very important to me. Triscuits or Wheat Thins? Expand.
Wheat Thins.
Wheat Thins. Same.
Triscuits are like itchy on the palate.
Yes, I say that. It's like eating a wicker basket.
Yeah, no, you don't like them. You're right.
Yeah,
good analogy.
I like a Wheat Thin with a little bit of the sugary taste, and to be able to scrape the top of the bar cheese with it.
No, you dip it into cheese.
Sure. You don't?
Perhaps some bean extract of some sort.
Bean extract.
What's that stuff called? I forget it. You eat it with
hummus.
Hummus, that stuff.
Like a hummus.
I never order it, but if it's there, I'll eat it.
Yeah. All right. So question number 2. I know you're from the Cleveland area, but you and Bob started your show up in Petoskey, Michigan, northern Michigan. What is your connection to northern Michigan, and how did you meet Bob and start up there?
When I was about 4 months old, my parents and my aunt took me up to Harbor Springs, Michigan, which is across Little Traverse Bay from Petoskey.
Yeah.
And I have been going there ever since. So I every summer went to Harbor Springs. Our family had a cottage by 5 Mile Creek.
Okay.
On the outskirts of Harbor Springs in Emmett County, Michigan.
Yeah.
I had been doing some radio down in Florida, and I had to have some pretty serious oral surgery back at University Hospitals in Cleveland.
Okay.
After the surgery, my face blew up like a basketball. So I was at my house. My parents were gone visiting my sister in Europe, and I was in my early 20s, and I'd had ice on my face for a week. But after about 7 days, I thought I need a break here. So I went up to Harbor Springs, and there I don't know if it's still there. There was a concert venue called Castle Farms.
Yeah. I saw the Police there.
Oh, cool.
In 1981, and then I saw Sting on a solo tour up there a few years later.
Yeah, great spot.
Yep.
And I went to see the Jay Giles Band. I'd
cool.
gone up to Harbor Springs. I'd been there for a couple days. Went to see the Jay Giles Band. On my way back to the cottage, I stopped at Bar Harbor, which is about 100 yards from the actual Harbor Springs Harbor, across from the pier. And I was in there, and I heard a guy playing pool say to Bob, who I didn't know at the time, Bob was tending bar, and the guy said something to the effect of, "Have they fixed the cart machine?" Well, a cart machine is something that now doesn't exist probably. It looked like an 8-track player, but that's what all the commercials were on radio stations.
Okay.
So I said to Bob, "Are you in radio?" And he goes, "Yeah, I work at this station across the bay in Petoskey." And I said, "Oh, that's great. I've got to get a copy of the then trade magazine, Radio and Records. Can I come over and take a look at it?" Which I did. And when I walked into the door of the place, it was called WPZ and WNBN. WPZ was kind of what they used to call adult contemporary. I'm not sure what that means. Kind of a softer top 40 sort of hits.
Easy listening.
No, easy listening in those days. That was what they called beautiful music. And what beautiful music was like the Holly Ridge Strings, Montavani. You'd hear Beatles songs, all elevator music type of thing.
Yeah.
So that was the FM, and the AM was a little more lively. And when I went to look at the trade magazines, I met the general manager, Trish, and she said, "Well, we're actually looking for somebody. Do you want to apply?" So after a little bit of this and that, I applied, and I was actually hired as the program director, of
Okay.
which I have no ability. But eventually, I was working there, and it was kind of like the skit that would later emerge, I guess, on SNL or somewhere, in which you're doing kind of a up-tempo delivery, and then you're going to the recorded beautiful music.
Yeah.
So you'd be going, Michigan's beautiful north weather with a very mellifluous voice,
Yeah.
partly cloudy today. And then you'd go to the AM where you were live going, hey, the weather today, what's going on, Bob? And back and forth. And Bob and I would kind of cross paths, and we would do a little bit of back and forth. And we had a lot of fun with it, although I'm not so sure that they liked what we were doing. And my favorite story there was the newsroom there was essentially the size of a phone booth. For those of you not familiar with the phone booth, they're not very
Yeah.
big. It was a little tiny booth, and then you'd look through the glass, and then there was the control board, which was the size of a walk-in closet. And so Bob would introduce the news, and I'd be doing the Michigan News, brought to you by Bob. And then one of the great ones was one day Bob came in he introduced me, then he goes away, and I'm doing the news. Bob came in with a lighter and set my news on fire. So you can see we took it very seriously.
Yes. Yes.
But eventually, the confusing thing for me was you'd have this beautiful music, these huge reel-to-reel tapes, and it was an early form of automation. So you could kind of set them up, and then you'd have to go check on them, and you'd have to go record things and put them on these carts in rotation. But things would go wrong, and you'd get a phone call at 2 in the morning, and someone would go, hey, your station's just played 2 hours of straight commercials, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd get in my car and drive around to Petoskey and try to sort things out. But Bob and I then ended up about a year later at WJML, which was a 100,000 watt monster.
Yeah.
100,000 watts in radio is a lot.
Yeah.
And the tower's on the top of Boyne Highlands. So we used to broadcast to moose, deer, beavers, a lot of water.
Yep.
And a bunch of great folks in the UP.
Yeah.
I remember we used to do a song to the tune of Hooray for Hollywood to Hooray for Engadine. And in those days, it was pre-fax machine.
Yeah.
So your only communication would be your phone lines and letters, snail mail.
Yep.
When we would get, someone would go, hey, are you making fun of Engadine? We go, no, it's great up there. But that was a really interesting experience because you never know who you're talking to anyway on the radio. But we would get great letters from all over the place. But we had a huge penetration because of the power of that station. That station is no longer there per se. That signal is part of some kind of, I think, Christian network.
Okay.
So there is no JML anymore.
Well, it's interesting you say that because you guys are on the Bear again, right? Out of Traverse City.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's funny you say that, but about a lot of the stations up there have these huge casts because I know the Bear broadcasts out of Traverse City, but they also have a repeater antenna, I believe, in Gaylord, so they cover a huge area too. Because I don't think people realize Northern Michigan is pretty sparsely populated. So if you want to get a lot of listeners, you got to be able to cast a wide web.
Yeah, there's another 100,000 water in Gaylord, I think, actually.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one it is, but if it's still there. And it is pronounced Gaylord.
Yes.
Not Gaylord.
Yeah.
And in our most recent Olympics, one of the very fine jumpers was from there.
Yeah. Yep. We had a lot of Michigan people.
Young lady.
The U.S. men's hockey team, when they scored that winning goal, 3 of the 4 people on the ice were Michiganders.
All right.
Yeah.
and two with the teeth,
Yes.
or somebody else. Okay.
That was he was one of them. Jack Hughes is one of them. All right. Question number 3. You ready? You're flipping channels on television. Apocalypse Now, Blazing Saddles, and Slapshot are all on at the same time. Which of those 3 do you watch?
That is a great question. It's obviously between Slapshot and Blazing Saddles. Um, I would probably go with Slapshot.
Yeah.
They're all good.
Yep.
Slapshot is a movie I recommend often. In fact, I just bought a DVD of it for a friend.
Yeah.
Really, not enough people saw that movie.
No, it's
Although
great.
it has had a long life, in part because of the Hanson brothers, who I think a version of them, I believe, still touring. I think.
Well, speaking of that, and going back to the little hockey reference that we said earlier, those guys actually did play not professional hockey, but in some of the some of the lower leagues, UHL, AHL, and stuff like that. And for a little while, 2 of them played on a team that's now called the Muskegon Lumberjacks. I can't remember what they're called back then, but they actually played semi-professionally in Michigan for a little while
Yeah.
after that movie came out.
And I think it's 2 brothers and a cousin.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yep. Yep.
but yeah, that movie is just terrific.
I just recently was flipping channels and it was on, and I watched the last half hour and forgot how much I loved it.
Yeah,
Great
it's
movie.
probably better on some form of non-broadcast television, cable,
Yeah.
whatever, because there's some salty language.
Yeah.
There's a couple. There's a couple that I'm surprised they're allowed to have on DVD. It's so
Yeah.
so
True.
to the
Yep.
point, if you will. I have 2 dogs. Boys, please, you know the rules.
Now let me ask you this: who came up with, between you and Bob? Who kind of came up for the template of the show? And when I talk about that, what I'm talking about is that, doing stand-up comedy, when we travel around, we do a lot of promo on radio shows. But one of the things I always found so fun and unique about you guys, because it is very unique, is that you guys have comedians in, and it's not a battle where you guys are trying to be funnier. You truly incorporate and utilize, your mindset is, we got funny people here, let's use them to make the show better, because that is kind of rare.
It's kind of the idea, though.
Yeah.
Bob and I, the fact that Bob and I knew almost nothing about radio was helpful.
Yeah.
We really didn't know what we were doing. And as Bob always said, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
And part of the big secret is listening to one another and not sort of going, wait, I got to get something in. Oh,
Yep.
You're thinking so much about what you're going to say next, you don't
Yeah.
hear what's coming in. But it as they often say, it was kind of organic. And believe me, we did not know what we were doing.
Yeah.
And as it changed over the years, it was because neither of us had ever listened to morning radio. I'd never gotten up. I'd never gotten up early in the morning unless my mother, except when I was in junior high school and high school, I had a paper route.
Yeah.
So I had to get up, and I learned to hate doing it then. And now, 46 years later, I've been getting up at ungodly hours all these years. But yeah, to answer your question, we didn't really know what we were doing. We just kind of did what felt right. Yeah, we didn't know it was working for a while, but
Yeah.
the first hint that it was working, to go back to Petoskey, was I got off the air one day. Bob and I were doing the morning show together, and we had considerable success in what they used to call the Arbitron ratings. And
Yeah.
we were up against some really good stations. There was a station called KHQ and a guy named Tim Moore, terrific broadcaster. And we had done really very well up against him, based in Charlevoix at a station called KHQ.
Okay.
Guy blowing leaves outside there. But one day I got off the air, and this was in the days before voicemail. And you would get pink slips, not the kind that are firing you, but there would be a secretary typically up front, and you'd get off the air and they'd hand you 3 or 4 slips going, so-and-so called, and you probably remember those lined. I got off the air one day, and I want to say there were 18 of them, maybe it was 17 slips, all from radio stations from all over the country.
Wow.
like Birmingham, Alabama, blah blah blah, all these places out of nowhere. And I called the first one, which happened to be Indianapolis. And this guy said, "Hey, would you be interested in maybe coming down here with Bob and doing a morning show?" And so it just so happened that my vacation was a couple days later. So I said, "Well, I'll come down." And I drove down, and then Bob flew down. And we did an interview. We liked what we heard, and we were kind of ready to move on anyway. And we came down here. What's interesting about that is we didn't understand why did these people get all these, uh, how did they find out who we were? Because
Yeah.
we hadn't circulated a tape or anything. And we can actually thank some folks in Kalkaska, Michigan.
Oh,
Believe,
nice.
believe
Yep.
it or not, this
Yep.
is so odd, but there used to be a seminar at the various radio conventions, and this one fellow would put on a seminar called "Get Rid of Your Competition," and the idea was you would bring in a tape of someone who was up against you, and you could get them out of the market. And we didn't find this out for quite some time. But
Yeah.
God bless whoever it was in Kalkaska, Michigan that taped our show one morning, and whatever 17, 18 program directors heard it and were interested in our services. So
Nice.
yeah, that's how that happened.
Nice.
And then we just happened to pick Indianapolis. That was the first one.
Yep.
So
Well, it's worked out well, right?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I've got a dog. Want to say hello? Come on here.
You can say, oh, yeah.
Okay, we got.
Mine's
Come here.
knocked out asleep over here.
This is Mr. Fletcher. He's somewhat reluctant. Fletcher, come on, boy.
Oh, how old is he?
Oh, he's about 3. He's afraid of the thunder and lightning. And then,
Yeah, so is my dog.
His little
Drives-
buddy,
drives
his
me
little
nuts.
buddy Dungy's here. He'll be happy to come on. There you go. See, I said hello, Dungy.
Hey.
What a good boy. Okay, sorry to interrupt the flow here.
All right. So let me ask you this, because I hear this all the time. You know, I come on your show. There's some radio I do locally here in Grand Rapids. And you always hear people say, oh, radio is dead. But then every time I'm on, I run into people who are like, hey, we heard you on the radio station the other day. Or let me tell you, I texted you that story. While just last week or a couple weeks ago, I had to go to this business in the township where I'm a firefighter, and we had to talk to these guys from these contractors of Indianapolis. And it got to talking, and I said, well, I do some stand-up comedy. And I said, I'm on the Bob and Tom show. And then I told them I go by Dave Dyer. And they were like, oh, my gosh, we hear you all the time. So what do you say to people when they say radio is dead?
It's a little bit different than it was because now people have a lot of options, but we do a lot of research and we know that radio is still the most significant audio in automobiles right now.
Yeah.
You know, people don't typically get up in the morning and go listen to a podcast on their way to work.
Right.
So radio is actually doing quite well.
Yeah.
It's not sort of the sexiest, trendiest format, but it's also fresh and lively,
Yeah.
particularly in the morning. Most places have live morning shows. A lot of radio during the day is, as you probably know, music radio. A lot of it is voice tracked,
Yeah.
where the person you're hearing isn't actually there at that point.
Yeah.
A lot of folks on the radio now aren't even in radio studios.
Right.
I mean, I could do our show from here if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't want to. We like being in the same room together. In fact, during
Yep.
COVID, we were one of the only stations we were on the air the entire time during COVID, and we were at the station.
Yeah.
We only allowed 4 people. We had a big studio. We had ancillary studios. We could see through the glass.
Yep.
And we did all the protocols that were required. I don't know much about it. I had the HVAC system. They installed some kind of ultraviolet lights or something that was some kind of technical air purifier, but none of us got COVID until long, long after
Yeah.
it had gone away. Well, 1 or 2 of
Right.
the people eventually got it, but we liked being in the studio and we kept it live. And looking back on those days, we all forget. My God, you couldn't go anywhere without a mask,
Oh, I know
et cetera,
it.
et cetera. Yeah, as I said at the time, no one's going to make a movie about this era because it was awful, and almost no one has.
Yeah.
See movies
True.
going, remember the good old days of wearing a mask? No.
Yeah.
But the point being, Radio is actually doing pretty well right now.
I
We
think
have
so
a
too.
and we have a very specific audience, um, particularly because it's talking and it's contemporary and about what of the moment,
Yeah.
if you will, as opposed to playing music.
I think also you get a lot of people who just like to whatever the new trend is, whatever the new mechanism is, that's what they want to go to no matter what it is. I am a firm believer that if the content is good, no matter where it's being broadcast, whether it's a podcast, AM radio, FM radio, I don't care. If it's good, people will find it and people will listen to it. So,
Yeah, you got to be careful about the trends. I mean, there are a lot of guys out there that have a CD-ROM that this is the next big thing.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
this is gonna hit. I
Yep.
mean,
You got it.
uh, I mean, you would have thought that the downloading was the be all and end all of music, and then Spotify came along, and
Yep.
yikes!
Yeah.
I mean, we've been on the air since. I mean, we quite literally saw the music source on radio go from vinyl records,
Yeah.
including 45s. 45s are the little ones with the big hole that go
Yep.
45. I mean, you have to explain this to younger folks.
Yeah.
Why would they know?
30,
But we
33
saw
and a
it.
third on the big ones. Yep.
Yeah, but we saw it go from vinyl to CDs. That was a very big thing in the early 80s.
Yeah.
You know, this is it. This is huge. This is the absolute end. It'll never get any better than this. And then about the early 2000s, I mean, at the radio station now, we probably have 3 or 4 thousand CDs that haven't been touched in,
Yeah.
I don't know, 10 years.
Everything's all digital MP3s and everything, right?
Yeah. I used to, when I first moved here, I would DJ high school dances, and I had these huge speakers, and I had two turntables,
Got the
amps,
load in.
the whole deal. And now you go to a thing like that, and everything's on one of these.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got every song ever recorded.
Yeah.
I've got
Yep.
I've got Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison and everything since.
Yep. All right. Next question here. You guys, I mean, all the years, like I mentioned earlier, you guys moved to Indianapolis in 1983. The show became nationally syndicated in 1995. You have had some humongous guests on, some of the biggest celebrity stars in the world. Who is the one guest in all of your years with the Bob and Tom show that has left you the most starstruck, the one you were most nervous to talk to, and who just kind of kept you in awe?
That's a really good question, and I'll give you a multi-part answer. I was probably the most nervous when Greg Allman and Dickie Betts came in.
Okay.
That was quite a while back. That was in the late 80s. This was their big reunion tour. And I was a big fan of those guys. And I had always heard that Greg could be kind of difficult.
Okay.
As it happened, they were fine. And there were a couple of funny moments. If you know the Allman Brothers, they famously had sort of a twin guitar attack, and then sadly Dwayne Allman died in a motorcycle crash. But they were coming back out, and they were bringing two guitar players again. And the other guy besides Dickie Betts was a guy named Warren Haynes.
Okay.
So they came into the studio, and Warren Haynes, Dickie Betts, and Greg Allman. And we're talking away, and I'm still kind of nervous. And Dickie Betts reaches over, grabs a Sharpie, and signals me, and I throw him a piece of paper, and he makes a big arrow on the paper and writes down Warren Haynes like this, hands it to me so I make sure and say something about Warren, which I thought was the coolest move.
Yeah.
And I know Dickie and those guys are all pretty much, Greg and Dickie certainly had some problems down the road, but I always thought that was a really cool move.
Yeah.
For Dickie Betts, who was obviously was a brilliant writer, great guitar player, great singer, songwriter, the whole thing. For him to acknowledge that, and Warren Haynes would become a staple of the Allman Brothers, off and on for years. But I was kind of nervous meeting Greg, and something funny happened during the interview. During a commercial break, we had to go to the I had to go to the bathroom, and so did he. And we walked into the hallway, and we both walked into the bathroom, and it was a one-stall bathroom with one stall and one urinal. So I went into the stall, and I was standing up and peeing, and Mr. Allman was doing whatever he was doing at the urinal. And did you ever hear Greg Allman talk like this?
Yeah.
And he said,
Big guy too. Was he a real tall guy?
yeah, he was. I think he was probably 6'1", 6'2", it looked like, hair down to there. But Greg Allman goes, you get up this early every day? Yeah. And he goes, these are his exact words, man, that's got to cut into your time to boogie.
It would. He's right.
And I would later find out that he had really never done a morning radio interview before. I did notice that when we walked out, one of his roadie guys walked up to him and kind of looked left, looked right, took his hand like this, and Greg took a couple of pills out of the guy's hand.
He's got a handler.
Not sure what they were.
Yeah.
There are some other Greg Allman stories that are not suitable for a family viewing. But okay, the guest that made me the most nervous. I was kind of nervous talking to Greg, then I calmed down. Most surprising guest, I would say, probably was Dolly Parton.
Okay.
Dolly Parton is a saint. She is the nicest person. She was so genuine during the breaks, during the commercial areas. She would say, tell me about your family. How many kids do you have? How old are they? And she was completely sincere. I never would have thought of that. She couldn't have been nicer. And obviously she's a national institution and is the most generous soul out there. Amazing.
Have you ever heard anyone say a bad word about her? Never, right?
If they have, they've never met her.
Yeah.
Lovely. But this is kind of a funny story. You've been to enough radio stations to know that there quite often is a glass window leading to maybe a hallway or another studio. And occasionally we'd have somebody in there like Dolly Parton, and you see 3 or 4 of the people from the staff, maybe secretaries or salespeople or whatever, engineers. They'd come over and look in to see. The one person, and you'll never get, I'll give you a couple, I'll let you try to guess this, who got the people in the building went nuts. Everyone came down, and there were all these people trying to look in the window. I'll give you a hint. He's primarily associated with short black and white films of many, many years gone by.
Somebody who, okay, so short black and white films of many years gone by. God, I can't think of who it would be. Is it a comedic person, a comedy person?
In a way, an actor who was primarily a child actor.
Alfalfa?
Close. Alfalfa
Spanky.
Spanky. Alfalfa died.
Wow.
Alfalfa died young in a deal gone wrong about selling a hunting dog. You'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
It was Spanky.
All right.
And Spanky from the Little Rascals or Our Gang, whichever. And people, they couldn't believe it. They had to see what he looked like.
Yeah.
And we've had obviously huge stars in.
Yeah.
And then if you ask me who is the nicest person that ever came in, you've got this whole group of great people. Peter Frampton is a wonderful guy. Dolly Parton's great. Recently we had Hugh Jackman come in.
Okay, I heard. Yeah.
I mean, the guy was so cool.
Yeah.
And again, during the breaks is when you kind of get to talk to him, and he goes, yeah, my best friend in Australia does a morning radio show. I love morning radio. Next time I'm around, I'll try to come in and sit in for the whole show.
That'd be
Nobody
great.
does. Who does that? The guy's like a major movie star, and he joked around with us, and he was playing guitar with Pat. It was really amazing. But for the most part, we've had a lot of really, really cool, nice people. But I'm trying to think of any others that I could single out. There's so many that have been great, and they kind of get it, and they're happy to play along. I mean, for example, John Mellencamp can be very serious, but he's got a really great fun side where he would call as somebody else.
Oh, on your show?
Yeah, he'd go to the next room and call in, and he'd go, "Is that Johnny Cooper guy there? I think he's dummy." And it would be Mellencamp in the next room.
Yeah.
If you get him on the right day, he's really funny.
Very.
But he'll insist on smoking, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's. I know. I've seen the whole little separate booth he has of his own at the Indiana.
The IU games. Yeah.
Stadium. Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. Next question.
Yeah.
You have to go on a 3-hour road trip. one of these three people, and I want you to give me the order of who you'd want to go with most and who you'd want to go with least and why. Here's your three
Okay.
options: Drew Hastings,
Yep.
Greg Hahn,
Yep.
or Greg Warren.
Oh, wow.
Who's your favorite to least favorite?
Probably I would go with Hastings because I haven't seen him in person for a couple of years. I talked to him on the phone for about an hour a few weeks ago. He's a fascinating guy. He's gone
Yeah.
through some serious stuff lately. Um, I see Greg Warren quite often, and similarly, I see Han a lot.
Yeah.
And act, Han's act is an act,
Yes.
and it's the offstage Greg Hahn is so different.
Yeah.
A great guy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Hastings is this genuine oddball.
Yes,
a
he is.
really odd guy.
Yeah, I just worked with him a couple months ago. And
One day he called me and he said, I just got back from the funeral home. What? Yeah, I wanted to pick a casket and everything and just wanted to be ready.
oh, he picked a casket out?
Oh, he did he got it all done.
Oh my gosh.
But he wanted to call me and
Nice.
let me know. And he's
Yikes.
he's like 6'6", so he probably had to order the XL.
Yeah.
But he is if you could measure just IQ, he may be one of the brightest guys out there.
You're talking Drew?
Drew.
Yeah.
Drew
Yep,
Hastings.
he's brilliant. Yep.
Which isn't to say these other guys aren't bright and funny.
Yeah.
But if you were on a 3-hour drive with Drew, you would just not know what to expect.
Right. Yep. You'd
He
have some
could
good
he could
conversation.
suddenly make some bizarre demand to turn right here to go 60 miles out of your way to get some particular odd food, kind of like a Tim
Yep.
Wilson thing, where Tim Wilson would insist, if you're going to Nashville,
Yeah.
you gotta go 80 miles out of your way to get the best pancakes I've ever had. If you don't like them, something's wrong with you.
Yep. I think I'd go same as you. I think I'd pick Drew first because Drew's going to be super interesting. I've done a bunch of shows with Drew in the past. You're going to learn something. Han is gonna push you along. Anytime I work with Han, you'll get a text going, "Lobby, 10 minutes, food, let's eat."
Yeah.
And then
Or
Warren,
Han goes, I'm like, Jeffrey Epstein, wish I'd met him. Love the chick.
Yep. And then Warren has all kind of stomach issues, so you'd have to be worried about kind of snacks you can have in the car and everything like that. And I'm not going to bother with that. So
And he is finally getting his due.
oh, isn't he? It's great.
He's on Nate Land and with Bargatze.
Yeah.
And Greg is a regular on our show. He was on our Comedy Central special
Yep.
years ago. Great writer, great stand-up.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something funny. My favorite Greg Warren bit is one. I don't know if he can do. I should ask him because he's been doing stuff with Nate where he's in front of 15,000 people.
Yeah.
But my favorite bit of his is really subtle. I can't really do it very well, but the essence of it is he's sitting with a buddy and the buddy's wife, and the wife's going, "Oh, you've got to meet Shirley. She's great."
Yeah.
And his buddy's going,
Yeah.
he's giving him the
quick.
that is just so brilliant.
Yeah.
We've all been
don't you
there.
think Greg? He says, don't you think Greg would like Shirley? He goes, sure. He's like quickly, no, giving him the salt. No, you don't want to do that.
But he's a terrific writer, and
he is.
He can be super clean, and
one of my favorite bits of his is he talks about he wasn't a farm kid, but about the pressure on farm kids and how he goes, my brother and I growing up, and we had to do chores. If I had to take the trash out, and if I didn't take the trash out, I got in trouble. He goes, if you live on a farm and you don't do your chores, the bank forecloses on the farm. And
it's pressure.
It's just a great joke. So
yeah.
all right, so Looking back on your career, what lessons have you learned, maybe professionally, that can kind of be transposed to something personally that would lend yourself to being able to give some good advice to your kids as they're coming up and they're doing all their different things in their professions? What's a couple things that stick out in your head that you've learned that you can pass on to them?
Um, write it all down.
Okay.
Any
Are you
agreement
telling
you
me to
have
do
with
that right
someone,
now?
yeah, write it down.
All right.
I can't go into too many details, but I've had situations in which someone promised a certain thing, and then that person gets fired.
Yeah.
Or wait a minute, we had an agreement. It's not written down.
Yeah.
Um, I was just telling one of my daughters was in Washington D.C. She was working for this large organization, and she was talking about some issues she was having about she had this meeting and they'd agreed on something and then it didn't come to fruition. And I said, here's what you do after, and this is so boring, I apologize, but after, if you have a meeting with somebody, the next day or the next hour, you write a memo going, hey, Steve, really enjoyed the meeting, and I'm glad we agreed to do the following. And then you've got a paper trail.
Yeah.
If they come back and go, well, no, we never, oh, yes, we did. And
Yeah.
I don't care what you do, you've got to keep a written record. And that's
Yes.
so boring, and I apologize, but
It's
how many times has that happened?
Oh,
Where,
it's happened a ton to me, especially, and I'm sure other fields as well, but this is what I have direct relation to is in comedy and entertainment. Man, you got to make sure you're right. It's written down or you have some kind of trail that you can go back on. And if you don't, then don't put a lot of faith in it that it's going to happen.
yeah, and a handshake deal's great, but if the guy that you shook hands with or the lady you shook hands with is gone, you're done. That's kind of a technical, boring detail about lofty advice. The other thing would be have a plan B.
Yep.
And know, okay, if this falls through, what am I going to do next? And the other thing is, and this is kind of funny because I was talking to a doctor friend of mine about this, and the essence of it is you kind of learn your job when you get there. You can
Yes,
go
that's
to
true.
you can go to all the schools you want. Obviously, you need, if you're an electrician, you need technical training. If you're a physician, you need certain basics. But this doctor buddy of mine was going, yeah, I went to medical school, blah, 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 blah. But everything I do now, I learned doing it on the job.
Yeah.
And that's it's nice to be able to go to college and et cetera, et cetera. But when you come out of it, I think a lot of people will hire someone because they're honest and they're hardworking. And a lot of people that are hiring are going to go, well, I'll teach you how to do this job, but I want to make sure that you're going to show up, you're going to be sober, and
Yeah.
you can do this. I'm going to teach you how to do it when you get here.
Yeah.
I heard a really interesting interview, and this would be a much better story if I could remember who this guy was. He was some lofty big shot at some giant corporation, and he said, if I had to choose between hiring someone who had worked in a restaurant or someone who had spent the summer in Europe interning, I would always take the person that worked in a restaurant. And I worked in restaurants for quite some time, and I always felt that was great training.
Yeah.
And
It
I know,
is.
Anthony Bourdain talks about this in the book Kitchen Confidential. And the essence of it is, if you're at a restaurant, if you show up on time, do your job, no one cares if you speak Greek, English, Spanish, can you do it?
Yeah.
And it's part of a team, and you've got to show up every day. And that's kind of a lot like radio. And the other aspect of it that's kind of like radio is nobody cares if your show was great yesterday.
Yeah.
No one cares if the hamburgers were great yesterday if they stink today.
Yeah.
You've got to be showing up.
Yeah.
But this big corporate guy was saying, yeah, I would always hire a restaurant person because they have been through it. I can remember one day at the restaurant, I got there, I was the first one there. I opened the door, and there was 6 inches of water flowing out the door. I mean,
Yeah.
flowing. And we got squeegees and brooms and carpet cleaners. And by God, we opened up at 5 o'clock that afternoon.
Yeah.
You've got to be flexible.
Yep.
I walked into the station today, and there were a bunch of fans and a couple doors open to some engineering thing. You've got to be ready. Okay, what are we going to do here? I mean, we've actually done the show on certain occasions. Hey, wait, we got to do the show from the parking lot today. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go for it. So flexibility and also, I guess, preparation and being ready for the. And when you're a fireman, you got to be ready
Yeah.
for. Hey, by the way, the floor just collapsed.
Yep. Very
I,
proactive. Yep.
I wasn't expecting that, so
Yep.
that's the essence of my wisdom.
Good lessons. Good wisdom. All right. Question number 9. We got 2 more and we're all done with this. You've done radio for, what did you say, 46 years now?
Yeah.
46 years. Tell me one thing that you liked better about doing radio in the old days, and then one thing you like better about doing radio today.
I kind of alluded to what's better today earlier. Back in the day, in 1979, through about, that's when I started. The only contact you had with the audience was the request line,
Okay.
or traditional so-called snail mail, which you typically wouldn't get a lot of. And the request line would often be dominated by, play Ozzy Osbourne, play Black Sabbath, blah, blah. And then we'd be discussing something maybe of a slightly more serious nature, and we weren't likely to get a neurologist on the phone
Yeah.
going, hey, fellas, by the way, blah, blah, blah. When the fax machine kicked in, at least it kicked in for us in the 80s, early 80s. When the fax machine came in, all of a sudden you could get a much more sophisticated bit of feedback, because you'd get a thing from some guy going, hey, I'm a physician. I heard you guys talking about this. Here's what you need to know. And that way it was filtering the information, and it was easier for that person to take the time to get a hold of you. So that really changed things, and then that evolved to the world of email, et cetera, et cetera. One funny story, during the Gulf War, you talk to anybody who was on the radio, anybody, and their fax machine, I've got to get rid of this dog, excuse me. Pardon me for 1 second.
No problem.
It's Dungy, named after the great Tony Dungy. Hello, what a nice boy you are. Could you let me finish, please? We'll talk about your lunch later. Where was I? Anybody that was on the air during the Gulf War, there was a primitive cartoon. We finally started. We would get it so often. We just papered a room with them on fax paper. It would come in, and it was a guy. It was the bad guys launching a missile, and it was a camel with a thing in its mouth and a guy smashing it in the balls.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone still has one of those. It's probably floating around the internet.
Probably.
But that was a very common fax. And then that, of course, evolved. So that was something that changed everything. So I guess what I was going to say, back in the day, one of the negative things was that. Now, how exactly did you word the question? What's better now?
So what did you like better about it then? And then what do you like better about it now?
Interesting. Now it's the instant communication now is much better.
Yeah.
It becomes much more of a dialogue.
Sure.
Back then, what was better about it? There was something different about it. You'd be in a conversation and you'd be going, "Hey, who was the guy in that movie that did so and so in Slapshot that took his teeth out?" Well, now you got someone that goes, "Just a second."
Yeah. Look at
Yeah,
we
that
got
was
the answer right now.
Yeah. There was also something about the music then. There was a certain. Let me put it this way. Back in the album days, you'd get a record and you would put it on, and you'd kind of have to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now it's just you pick the singles, and
Yeah.
there was a little bit of that kind of on the radio too. People didn't have instant access, everything all the time. If they really want to hear that song, they just pick up their phone and there it is.
Yeah.
So you were kind of able to do a little bit of a service for people. Hey, I've got this song coming up. That was different. I'm trying to think of a more profound answer. What was? And there was a little more mystery, I guess.
Yeah.
I can remember, and this is awful. I know. Please don't write Dave and blame him. But back in the day at JML in Petoskey, we had a big phone thing. It looked like a regular landline telephone, but it had about 10 buttons on it. So it was about the size of a. This dog is. Could you get down, please? Um, there was a picture of an extremely unattractive woman on it, and it said,
Being kind.
"This is who you are talking to." Because especially the overnight guys would get those "play Misty for me" calls.
Sure.
Hey, what are you doing after it? And we had the warning signs.
Yeah.
But there was the larger point here is there was a mystery about no one knew really what we looked like.
Yeah.
And now we're on the internet
They're
and on
everywhere.
TV, and there's nothing really hidden.
Yeah.
So there was also and this exists to a degree now still, a theater of the mind aspect
Yes. Yeah.
where you can have Mr. Obvious and you don't see anything, but you recognize that character as the idiot that
Yeah.
calls up the talk show with an incredibly stupid question,
Yeah.
or you have some of our pieces that we have done over the years where it's theater of the mind, kind of like a fire sign theater or old radio theater, and that still exists because not
Yep.
everyone's watching you, but that level of mystery is kind of gone.
Yep. And you guys, even up until recently, Ron Sexton, God rest his
Sure.
soul. Donnie Baker. My favorite is as big as Donnie Baker was. I always used to love when he called in as Kenny Tarmac, and that was that's
That was
still that same kind of thing because you're picturing where Kenny is. He's in a different
Yeah, that
airport.
was that was staggeringly original.
Yeah, it was great.
Um, and that was a character that was a sales guy.
Yep.
And whenever any of us would hear any sales terms, we would email Ron and go, "You got to work this in."
Hey,
Uh,
we
yeah,
just landed. It was
yeah,
just
but I remember one of us said, "You got to say reload." Okay, listen, I got to reload. Every time I would hear some guy do one of those terms, I would throw it
yeah.
at him. Yeah,
Yep.
but that's the beauty of it. That still exists.
Yeah.
As you say, God rest Ron's brilliant soul. But yeah, we still have a little bit of that, but it's kind of been lost. Much
Yeah.
the same way when MTV came out, and there was always with the song, you always kind of have your own thing about what's going on, and then MTV puts this narrative on it, which in the early days, unbelievably stupid. The guys from Journey were stomping through a warehouse, and they spent $12 making this video.
Yep.
There were obviously some great ones, but yeah, that aspect is kind of gone. There's
Yeah.
probably a much more interesting and profound answer, but I can't think of it right now.
No, that was good. Perfect. All right. Last question here, Tom. Favorite way to celebrate a win, either personally or professionally? Favorite way to celebrate it?
Wow, that's a really good one. I don't drink alcohol, so champagne is out.
Okay.
Um, God, I don't know. I don't know what do I do?
Favorite place you like to go to dinner? Spend time with the family?
Yeah, I have lots of kids, and one of them just walked by with the flu.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't really have any rituals of any kind like that. Kind of whatever should happen happens, and I'm always too busy to really take notice of what's going on.
Well, I know occasionally in the winter I get a text from you when you guys take your 2 weeks off in December. You like to go out west and ski, right?
Yeah.
So that applies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Celebrating the year?
Yeah. One of the downsides of this. Oops, sorry. That's just my
No
alarm
problem.
clock going on. One of the downsides of this job that I have is kind of like I said earlier, you're only as good as your data that you're doing it. Not you can't rely on yesterday's show. Like right now, I'm thinking about doing a few hours of preparation for tomorrow morning, and then I'll be in the studio at 5 or 4
Yeah.
in the morning, and be prepping. So there's kind of always, well, we don't really have time to celebrate because we got to do the next show.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that. But yeah, I do go. I take a couple of weeks off and go skiing, which is really fun. I like that. Although this year the skiing out west had been pretty terrible. I guess they finally got some snow. I may take a day off and head back out. Yeah. What do you do after a great firefight, a successful day, saving lives, and
You know what? My wife and I, we like to go out to dinner. There's a little tiny place not too far, a couple miles from us. It's a little restaurant, kind of a pub sort of a feel, called Bud and Stanley's, and we love to go out. In fact, I think we're going to do it tonight. We love to go out to dinner there and have a couple beers and a burrito and just relax for a little bit, and that's kind of a nice little way to do it. As far as something on a bigger scale, speaking of northern Michigan, we love to take a couple days and go up to the Traverse area, that whole area up there.
Sure.
And, people, I think more and more people are finding out, but that northern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan is just absolutely gorgeous and relaxing and just such a wonderful place to be.
one of the great secrets is go from Harbor Springs to Cross Village.
Yeah.
You drive along that pine tree cliff.
The tunnel of trees, that area?
Yeah, it's what is that, 119?
Yes.
Yeah,
119,
start in Harbor. A lot of motorcycles people do it, and there's a terrific place called Legs Inn. This beautiful old cabin.
Great Polish food.
Exactly. And my one of my sons is married to a woman whose parents came from Poland, and so she's giving it the thumbs up.
Nice.
So you probably don't say to yourself, if I want good Polish food, I'm heading to Harbor Springs and going to Cross Village. Yeah, that's an amazing drive. That is, and that is one of my spots. There's a rumor, I don't know if it's true, and I've talked to Bob Seger a couple times, but I always forgot to ask him. The rumor was that Fire Lake was written about that view where the sun drops in. You can kind of see
I believe it.
Lake Michigan, and it's just this huge ball dropping into it looks like the ocean. You see the islands out there. That's amazing. That's a great spot to chill.
I always tell my wife I never sleep better, and my heart rate is never lower than when I'm in northern Michigan. It's just the best. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Well, there we go, Tom. That's it.
All right.
That's the whole show. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Once again, my guest today has been Tom Griswold of the Bob and Tom Show. You can tune in if you're in Indianapolis, WFBQ, or you can find you guys on iHeartRadio. Stream the show all over the country that way, correct?
And we're on lots of stations. Lots of different regular radio stations, and we're also feeding out on the internet every morning live.
Yep, and you can go to bobandtom.com. You can look on stations and you find all the
and they literally this morning we flipped the website. I hope they've got it back up. We have a whole new website thing with a bunch of brand new technical stuff.
Nice.
So it should be crystal clear and up and running tomorrow. I hope. We'll see.
Perfect.
If it isn't, email me bobandtom@bobandtom.com. And be careful fighting those fires.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Yes,
I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.